new project. This was unplanned. Did not think of it in advance. Something that sort of just grew. So I was in the US. This is 2022, and looking for cars, messing around with cars like I usually do. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, this Charger turned up, which is behind me. It's a 70. Nothing special, just a small block car, 318. And it was looking very sad. I'll show you a couple of the photos. Coincidentally, this car was in a yard. There's a friend of mine in America, and when I was doing the Roadrunner episode, driving the 70 Roadrunner six-pack car across America, the yard that was next door to the shop where I built the Roadrunner, the fabrication side of it, had this particular Charger sitting in the yard. It was sitting on top of another Charger, I think a 68, looking pretty sad. It had been prepared for repair. They'd had roughly cut the quad panels off, part of the wheelhouses off, taken the main floor out, the cowl top, the trunk floor, and then all the other parts sort of completely off the car. So it was virtually a shell, except had the front end suspension in it and the rear end. Otherwise, nothing else left. So in that particular trip in 2018, whilst I was doing the Roadrunner, looking around in the yard, I had access to the yard to get parts for the 70 Roadrunner that I required for that car. But whilst I was looking for the parts for that car, I found this 70 Charger in amongst the yard. I just noted, because that's what I do, I recognise stuff like that. Found quite a lot of that car just laying around this yard that had been disassembled years before. I found out many years later, this car had been disassembled 20 years ago. It had been media blasted and then just left out in the yard in bare steel. Surprisingly, it just had light surface rust. It looked terrible, but actually the rust was not deep. It wasn't like deep corrosion. It was just basically a light surface rust. I felt that could be recovered with being sandblasted again for the second time. So anyway, so leap forward like 4 years, and I go back to visit my friend John in the US, and at the backyard, the Charger had been removed from this yard and put in his backyard. And I said, "What are you doing with the Charger? I recognise that car from the yard." And I said, "Are you thinking of doing something with it?" He goes, "No, I'd like to see someone do something with it, but I just want to sell it." So had no plans to buy it. It looked almost as bad as the Charger I did in my first episode, the 70 Charger I did a few years back, which was a complete basket case. This looked very similar. So I wasn't sure whether I wanted to take that on. And when I initially saw it, I thought maybe I'll just assemble as many parts as I can, throw it together, either sell it sort of more complete, or whether I even go the further bit, paint it, and then actually get it running and driving and maybe just move it on. Thinking about it after I bought it, it dawned on me that a 70 Charger was a perfect donor car to make up a 69 Dodge Daytona. That just came out of my left field. Actually, I think Rick might have thrown that up in the air and gave me the inspiration, and then of course once I got the inspiration I run with it. So then I thought, perfect car to make a Daytona, nice sister to have beside the 70 Superbird I have. So I basically put the wheels in motion. And then of course, what do I do about drivetrain? It's gone from just a throw together, maybe flip it, not sure, to a special build. And that's what it's come down to now. So I've decided to go the other extreme, and I'm going to make this car pretty special. So driveline's going to be a 6.4 modern Hemi and a TKX 5-speed manual gearbox. So it should be a bit of fun. It's going to be pretty zippy to drive, and it's going to look like, on the outside, it's going to look like a 69 Daytona. I do like the originality looks. Not really into big wheels or anything like that as a rule. But then I'll do a bit more upgrades, suspension and driveline, and interior I'll probably do my little take. I do a little bit customised interior, but still a look in keeping with the era, but just a bit more comfort, modern air conditioning, the usual stuff that I've done with quite a few of my cars in the past. Anyway, this is what it's going to be. So when I got the car back from America, first thing I did was I sent it off to my local media blaster and had the whole car, well, not the front sheet metal, I had the whole shell, which was the bit that was in bare steel. The rest of the panels actually were original paint. The hood, driver's side door and fender were original panels for this car. Had a really rough right side fender, and then I've picked up other panels along the way. So I haven't had those blasted. I'll address those later. This part has been all about getting the back of the car structurally sound, which it wasn't when it came. So already done quite a bit of work at the moment, stripping out the outer wheel houses, doing a few small little repairs on the inner wheel houses, lower inner sill. Obviously the quarter panel is going to go over that. A couple of very small repairs on the rear chassis rails. They're actually savable. I had a little bit of pitting, but there was only a few little small holes, so I was very satisfied with just repairing those small little pieces. And of course the tail panel's salvageable, but the lower rear valance, obviously the reinforcement for the bumper, they've got to be replaced, and the inner cross member has to be replaced. You can buy all that new, which I have. So I've already made a start, and I've got some other videos that I'll show you on the progress. Much harder car to get some parts. 70 sheet metal's not available, so front fenders and hood are not available reproduction, so you have to try and get what you can get, and they're getting really hard to get, and they're getting really expensive. Luckily I was able to salvage the hood. I'll show you a video on that. This fender will be repairable, and that fender I've placed locally. In the meantime, I have actually already replaced the cowl top. I'll show you some videos on that. And I've also replaced the floor. So it's really come a long way already. Got a lot of nibbling around the back window. A lot of that I have to just basically cut out and repair, but given that it's going to be a Daytona, there's a window plug that goes in the back there and actually hides, not hides, but goes over that whole sail panel area of the Charger, so that's going to be completely changed. So that's something to look forward to. I have ordered all the parts through Winged Warriors. I've got all the Daytona parts coming, so they'll be here soon. So I'll start to get excited now, because you know, I'll be looking forward to going into something a little different that I haven't done, although this is deja vu. This is just me doing the 70 Charger all over again. But you know, I do like a challenge. This car came with AMD quarter panels, but the versions that are cut below the body line. Now I haven't cut this out. This is how it was when I bought the car. This was done at the panel shop 20 years ago when the full quarters weren't available. But I actually am going to do a beautiful butt joint. I'll clean all this up and do a beautiful butt joint along there, and I'll do the lower quarter. The top is good upper on the sail panels, no rust. The taillight panel's good, no rust. I've got a new boot lid for it, and obviously those parts at the back there I said before, and then a little bit of work around the Dutchman panel. Needs to be some clean-up work there, but I'll clean that up, make it all nice, strong, welding, not any sections that are rusty, but all that's not seen. All that is underneath the rear sail panel, so won't have to be quite as fussy as normal. Anyway, so it's coming along, and keep an eye out for the progress. And also, if you like, go back to my first episodes, which are a little bit rough. We've gotten a bit better at doing our filming, and have a look at the 70 Charger I did in the past, which was kind of similar condition to this. I do like a project. It is, and if you remember my 70 Charger I did it earlier in my YouTube channel, that was a real mess. And this car actually in some ways isn't as bad, even though it looks terrible. In some ways it's not as bad as the other one. So I've just literally started just doing a couple of small repairs down the bottom of the A-pillar there. Nothing major, just little bits of nibbling. The main thing is the main floor of the car, which I've already unpicked. So, but chassis rails are solid. The back pan is solid up over the axle there, which is good. I got a little bit of nibbling on the inner wheelhouse, and both outer wheelhouses have been cut off. So I've got two new outer wheelhouses. So the main floor is going to go in, and then I've got a bit of nibbling in the cowling. I'm actually going to, I think I'm going to delete these vents. This is where they always rust because they get built up of dirt around here and rust area. So this was all cut out by someone in the past. A beautiful job. So I've got to rework all that, neaten all that up, seal it up. And the other side, I'm going to take that piece out. I'm just going to blank it right off altogether. This is just a drain. The cowl top goes over the top of that. So that's the plan with the cowl top. I did exactly the same thing on the other Charger. And the quarter panel's been chopped off. Now these came with the car. Now normally I prefer to have the AMD panels that go right up to the factory joint in the roof. But these came with the car. They are at AMD pressing. They're just designed to be patched in. So I'm actually going to cut this up and cut the quarter panel, make it match. I'm going to do a butt weld all the way along the top of the quarter panel, and it'll come out really nice. There's no worries about doing it. It's just nice to do it the factory way normally, but in this case I won't worry. I've collected several doors. Now with the Daytona, if you're not familiar, they actually fill in the back panel here. So this becomes a fastback roof, and they cut the boot lid down. So it literally gets shortened, and then about from here to here is a whole new panel, the smaller but sort of a much bigger back window, and it makes it a fastback, and of course, and the wing goes on the back. So the back of the car, like I said, pros and cons. The taillight panel is salvageable, but the rear valance is shot. So I bought the rear valance, and I bought this rear cross member which will weld up to the factory chassis rail. So those 4 pieces will rejuvenate all that. This gets taken in that one piece, so all that gets joined up here. So that and all that will be done in one piece. So that's it really for body. I mean, there still is a mountain of work. It's like anything with these old cars, pros and cons. You just got to deal with it. It's pretty common these days with a car of this age, and they're renowned for rusting anyway. And Chargers are getting so much harder to find and expensive. So sometimes you've got to get what you can get with it. So I'm pretty excited about doing a Daytona clone. And I'm going to go a modern Hemi again, like I did in the last 70 Chargers. So this time I bought the 6.4. I bought a brand new 6.4 crate motor, and I bought a 5-speed Silver Sport conversion. So this is going to be a real hot rod. It's going to be a manual, 5-speed manual with an overdrive obviously, and the 6.4 Hemi. So this is very early days. There's a lot of work to be done, and whenever you get a job this size, you literally just start on one little area, fix that and go to the next, and just go on like that, one piece to the next. If you look at the whole job, you'll never get it done. You're better off not thinking about it too much. Attacking rust, which is pretty common. The deja vu bit means because reworking this cowling, wasn't that long ago I did the cowling on that car, which was very similar. So I basically just deleted entirely the air intake they have there for the interior of the car. I'm running air conditioning. I'm not worried about having any flow through air. So I've just basically deleted that, so that eliminated all the rust that was around there, and the same on the other side. And then there was a couple of small patches here and there, but basically it wasn't too bad. Got my weld through primer ready to go, and here's the nice new cowl top. So I've got a punch and drill holes all around the perimeter of that, which will get welded back in exactly where the old, well, not exactly where, but in the same areas again. So done a little bit of rust repairs, only small stuff that was down the bottom of the A-pillar on both sides. So same with this side, nothing too bad though. And then of course I've got to go into the floor area. So I've taken the floor out entirely, well the first 3 pieces of the floor. I've got a very small repair to do on just the cross member. That's the only piece that I could see that's structural. It's only small, so I'm basically pretty happy. So I've got a new floor to go in there. That'll probably be the next job for now. And then I'll go on to, actually we've got another project coming up, so this might actually be put on hold for a little bit. I'm also waiting on parts. I'm hoping to try and get the Daytona parts. At this stage they're eluding me, so I'm hoping that's going to happen. Finished welding the cowling in. So I showed you earlier all the rust repairs underneath the cowling, and now the new cowl top's on, so looks fantastic. We're so lucky to have these parts available. The next section is on the go now, so preparing the floor for preparing the chassis rails and inner sills to take the new floor. So it's all cleaned up, all the surfaces have been cleaned. Inside the rails have been epoxy primed and just sealed, so more than they ever would have had back in the day. And I've had the floor in there a couple of times to mark it all out. Floor's over here. So here's the floor ready to go back in. What a lot of people don't do is pay enough attention to putting all the plug welds in where they need to be. So it's a case of putting the floor in and then marking it out from underneath, punching the holes all around the sides, and then cleaning the paint off. The holes are punched on the actual firewall in this car, so make sure you clean the paint off all the edges. I've got some weld-through primer, these pieces as well. So there's 3 pieces in all. That's kind of what it looks like from the back when you mark it out. Just chalk it all out so you know exactly where everything's got to go. Bit of messing around because you've got to put it in, take it out, put it in, take it out. Anyway, it still looks a real sight, but it's really, to me, it's come forward so much. Once that new floor's in, it's going to look $1 million. So, well, $1 million to me compared to how it looked before. Anyway, I shall keep going. And this car has been holding me up a little bit. I'm doing this for someone else. So this is a 70 Challenger that's been keeping me out of trouble. That's why I haven't been sort of getting onto my videos or starting the Daytona. So this just came out as a regular small block Challenger, and the customer's bought a Hellcat for it. So it's going to be pretty zippy. He had a lot of requests in the engine bay. He wanted nearly all holes deleted. He's going to run modern air conditioning. So a fair bit of time in this car. It came back from Media Blast with a lot of rust, much more than what we anticipated. So hell of a lot of rust around the cowling and lower A-pillars, lower quarter panels, front and rear, around the back window, boot floor, some patches on the main floor which I just made because the customer just wanted to do a patch repair, not replace the whole floor. And the boot floor centre, it just didn't need the whole lot, it just needed patches everywhere, but in the lower quarters, outer lower quarters, inner and outer lower quarters in front of the back wheel. And then just taking out dints like usual. There's a 55-year-old car who's got dints everywhere. So it's just a matter of concentrating on every square inch and trying to get it nice and straight. So this is actually ready for paint. I'm just waiting to get the bonnet. I'm hoping to get that today. They wanted a rally hood, so I'm hoping to get that today, and then we can finish the paint, make it shiny, and then the customer's going to take that away and do the mechanical side of it. I'm not doing that. Anyway, it looks good.
So the reason why the best charger to use for a 69 Daytona clone, if you're not aware, is the front sheet metal was actually brought forward from the 1970 model, which hadn't been released yet, which they used on the 69 Daytona. And the 70 Charger had a loop bumper for the first time, which was perfect for bolting on the 69 Daytona pointy nose. So that's the reason why if you're ever going to build a clone of a 69 Daytona, it's a good starting point to have a 70, or you've got to go and buy front fenders and bonnet, which are hard to find these days. It can be done, of course. I started with a 70 because it just happened to come my way. So that's why they use it, and I believe the engineering department did the 69 Daytona, and they did all the engineering for the best aerodynamics, and some people said that the 69 Charger was a bit more agricultural. They just sort of did what they needed to do to make the car go fast, which it was. It had the best co-efficiency compared to the Superbird. It was actually slightly better. So the design department did the Plymouth Superbird. And some people argue that the design department did a better job. They used the 69 Dodge Coronet front fenders and hood, and they grafted those to line up with the nose panel, and it looks a little bit more smooth, a bit better flowing, if you like, than what the Daytona did. But the Daytona did the job, and as I said, was actually the slipperiest through the air. So there you go. So a little bit of history.